The views expressed on the following program do not necessarily represent those of this station or its management.
It's time now for Where You Live with Gene Sullivan, the show that deals with the news and events that affect you the most. Whether you rent or own, live in an HOA, single-family home, or an apartment building, Gene will tackle the issues right where you live. So, from the True North Painting Studios, here is the original man of steel, Resolve himself, who stands for truth, justice, and the association way. Here's Gene Sullivan.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Where You Live. I am Gene Sullivan, broadcasting from the True North Painting Studios. When you're looking for the right painting contractor, what do you look for? Isn't it someone who will respect you, your time, your property, and your budget? That's what you can expect from True North Painting. Find out more about this exceptional company by going online at truenorthpainting.com. That's trunorthpainting.com, or give them a call at 952-831-1433. I'm also brought to you by the great folks at Extreme Exteriors and American Family Insurance, the Kim Bennett Agency. I want to say hello to the man who has the fastest fingers of any board op, either side of the Mississippi. You take your pick. I want to say hello to Christopher Wider Huberty. Hi, Chris.
How are you today, Gene?
I'm doing great.
Good.
Let me ask you, do you get along with all your neighbors where you live?
I do. In the apartment,
Yeah.
only met a few of them, but one's actually my pizza delivery guy.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You always want to be nice to the pizza delivery guy.
He's given me a couple pies out of the goodness of his heart before, too.
Really? Okay. So you've got a good experience.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one of the things that we're going to be talking about with our first story this morning is there was a survey done in Great Britain on what most people think of their neighbors. What would you think, Chris? Would you think that most people in Great Britain have a favorable or unfavorable view, by and large, of their neighbors?
I would guess more not so favorable.
You read the article, didn't you?
Busted.
Well, yes, it is. That is true. So without further ado, let's begin with our first story in property management in the news. Property management in the news is brought to you by Home Furniture and Abbey Floor Coverings. Their showrooms are staffed with professionals who will help you choose what you need to fit both your lifestyle and budget. Whatever you need, chances are they'll have what you're looking for. Now, if you wish to avail yourself of special pricing you're not going to find anywhere else, all Where You Live listeners, call Customer Service Coordinator Lori Matson at 952-224-2663. And as I indicated at the beginning here, our first story comes because of a survey that was done in Great Britain. Apparently, there is a very large insurance firm by the name of Swinton in the UK. And they have surveyed well over 2,000 people in conducting a survey asking a lot of questions about the home, how people interact. And I suppose for insurance companies and actuaries that they are always very concerned about wanting to know what habits are because of liability. And it was interesting. They found out in this recent survey in Great Britain that 60% of the people surveyed said, we do not get along with one neighbor. There is one neighbor we just can't stand, 60%, so well over half. What was interesting, 30% or half of that group, or nearly almost one-third here of the people surveyed, said, we don't get along with more than one of our neighbors. So there are at least two or more of our neighbors that we don't get along with at all. The survey also asked questions like, would you ever socialize with your neighbors? How about you, listener? Do you get together with your neighbors? My wife and I have good friends who ended up purchasing about 2 years ago in a townhome association. And when they moved in, they called us right away, and they were excited because the people on either side of their homes, and even beyond that, they all had things in common. And this group gets together regularly in grilling and socializing. It's one of the things I enjoy about the neighborhood where I live. We're always being asked a couple times a year over to someone's house for a dinner party. Our homeowners association has a couple of events during the year just to socialize, like an ice cream social and other things to get people to get to know one another. But here in this survey in Great Britain, they said 28% said, I would never socialize with any of my neighbor under any circumstances. Now, if 30% don't get along with two or more neighbors, that means, I guess, that of that 30%, there's 2% that said, I guess if it comes to socializing and cracking open a beer, I'd probably forget about why I dislike my neighbor for having a drink. But most are saying, no, I'm not even going to socialize with them at all. What's also interesting about this survey, it says that 10% of everyone surveyed admitted to being in a feud with their neighbors for over a 4-year period of time. Can you imagine that? Is that true with you? Are you in a feud with a neighbor? And is that something that has not been settled, not over a couple-month period, but over several years, that there isn't one adult in the room, not one person who's going to say, you know what, I'm going to put an end to this? Well, of those people who've said that they had feuds for over 4 years period of time, almost half of them described the feud as a big issue. They said these are really huge, big issues. 14% admitted that they were petty. They said they were just something very small. I'd like to know what would be considered a petty and what would be considered a big issue. If I'm thinking the way I am here, I'm probably guessing that what someone considers a big issue is only a big issue in their eye, but actually is something that's very petty. Well, what are some of those things? Well, the survey brought that out, and that is what I have here in my hands. Here is the list of the 20 reasons why people in Great Britain will not do not get along with at least one of their neighbor. A third of them, at least, there's more than one that they won't get along with, and they don't socialize with them. So tell me, folks, as I read this list, is this petty or are these big issues? Number 1 on the list was they block my driveway. Now, that would be a little bit of a concern if you have to get out for work, or if you're trying to get somewhere to a matinee or to a movie on the weekend and someone is blocking your driveway. That can be annoying. It says, number 2, they park in my space. I want to know what does that mean, park in my space? Well, if you live in a neighborhood, I remember years ago when I was first married, my wife and I were renting a home in South Minneapolis, and there was street parking. There wasn't a garage that we had in the back of the house or even an area to park the car, so you can only park your cars on the street. A lot of people living in Minneapolis have that same thing. Well, the people who own the home next to the one we were renting, they were upset if anybody parked a car along the curb anywhere along the property line of their home. So if the width of their lot was 60, 80 feet, then there could be no cars parked there because they considered that their parking space. Is that what we're talking about here? really, that parking space is something that you're going to be upset with. Here's another one. They said dogs bark all day long. Well, that can be a little bit annoying, especially if you don't have one. Here's one. They say, my neighbors, their garden is a tip. Now, I must admit here that if I'm going to pronounce some of these objections that people in Great Britain have, I'm going to have to pull out my American-British dictionary here to try and get the translation. Well, the tip means, in British slang, I looked it up here before the show, untidy. So they keep their garden, they keep their lawn untidy. They don't keep it up. Is that something that's big enough to say, I'm not even going to socialize with you, I'm not even going to give you a hi or the time of day? Well, there are so many other things here on this list. A few of them, I think they caught my funny bone. I think they will yours too, but let's take a break right now. And when we come back, we're going to be dealing with why a majority of people in Great Britain indicate that they just don't get along with their neighbors. More after these messages.